your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for a look back at Alberta this week. With the provincial election coming up May 29th, all sides are switching into full offensive mode. This week, the Alberta NDP were blasting Premier Danielle Smith's UCP over their spending habits. Figures released by Alberta's opposition party shows the government spent more than $4 million tax dollars on advertising in January and February alone. They say that's up roughly 614% from 2022, bringing the UCP's total advertising spending to more than $9 million. The NDP says Albertans are paying for Danielle Smith's election campaign.
That's exactly what's happening, that Danielle Smith's UCP is using taxpayer money to prop up their re-election campaign. And back in the day when Danielle Smith was in opposition, she criticized then Premier Redford spending $1.3 million just before the election. And now they're spending crazy amount of money just to prop up their election campaign. That is offside, and that is absolutely unacceptable.
But according to Alberta Deputy Premier and Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf, the ads Albertans are seeing are in relation to government help that's available.
Well, I'd like to set the record straight. This is about reaching Albertans and making sure they have the information that they need to access the affordability payments to help them through this time. This is for seniors, families with children, those with disabilities, and a lot of people who live in Alberta where English isn't their first language. We've all experienced phone scams and fraudulent activities over the phone lines. It's the government of Alberta's responsibility to make sure that Albertans have the information they need to access the supports that they deserve during this high time of inflation.
The bodies of 2 Edmonton police officers who were shot and killed in the line of duty were transported from the medical examiner's office to a funeral home in Edmonton this week. Police say people were encouraged to show their support by lining the route at noon on Tuesday to honor both Travis Jordan and Brett Ryan. Police say the constables were responding to a family dispute at an apartment complex last week when they were shot multiple times by a 16-year-old boy. Police say the shooter also wounded his mother during a struggle for the gun and then shot and killed himself. A regimental funeral for the officers will be held March 27th at Rogers Place in Edmonton. Another group has announced they're joining the Supreme Court challenge against Bill 69, also known as the No More Pipelines Bill, which the Alberta Appeals Court struck down last year. And according to political reporter Brian Lilly of the Toronto Sun, there's a growing pushback against this bill. Brian joined me from Toronto earlier this week to discuss this. Have a look. So would you say that there's a growing pushback against this bill?
There is, and because of the way that the Trudeau government is dealing with the bill, trying to enact the bill, because even though the Alberta court struck it down, it's still, it is in. They said it's unconstitutional. It's still being applied, and there was an announcement today about a housing project in Ontario. But they want to use this same bill to say, well, can that go ahead? Next door to you in Saskatchewan, there's power plants that Premier Moe wants to build. Saskatchewan is embracing wind and solar to a degree, but Premier Moe said a little while ago, we still need natural gas plants for baseload power for when the sun's not shining and when the wind's not blowing. And the federal government is saying, oh, well, I don't know if you can do that. So they've taken this Bill C-69, and they've expanded its scope into every area of, if the environment can touch on it, the federal government wants to regulate it. And that would essentially remove provincial power over everything. So it's not just pipelines for Alberta, it's housing development for Alberta and Saskatchewan and Ontario and everywhere else. It's how your electricity grid is going to be built. Alberta still uses a lot of coal. Are they going to try and force you out of coal? Well, look, everyone does want to move away from coal to other sources of electricity, but how that will be done, is it going to be dictated by the federal government? So now you've got all 10 provinces signing on. I guess Alberta challenged it and won, but all 9 other provinces have signed on and said, we're backing Alberta. Think about that. That includes the NDP government in British Columbia. That includes the Liberal government in Newfoundland and Labrador. And now the Canadian Constitution Foundation is taking up the challenge as well, and they've hired lawyers to intervene.
We need to take a quick break, but when we return, an Alberta man is one of the first in Canada to undergo spinal surgery while wide awake. Keep it right here. Welcome back. A Lethbridge man who suffered from terrible back pain for more than 4 decades is believed to be the first patient in Canada to undergo spinal surgery while conscious. Surgeon Dr. Michael Yang says he performed Todd Bean's procedure in February at Foothills Medical Center in Calgary with a local anesthetic only. According to Alberta Health Services, general anesthesia can result in nausea and other complications that typically require patients to stay in hospital for a few days. Remarkably, after only 4 hours following his surgery, Bean was on his way home.
This is really collaboration with our anesthesiologist colleagues and be able to do this operation in awake patients that we reduce the stress of the anesthesia on the patient and be able to do the surgery in a very minimally invasive way, just a 2-centimeter incision, and be able to target that disc pathology and get that out to give him relief after his operation.
I get up in the morning, I cook my grandkids breakfast and everything else. It got to where I couldn't even do that anymore. Just the pain was too much. Without that pain, it's just tremendous how much difference it is.
Dr. Yang says fully awake surgery means eligible patients are able to recover faster, go home sooner, and have less risk of post-op complications. Remarkable. Early this week, a first shipment of children's pain and fever medication ordered months ago from a Turkish manufacturer became available in pharmacies. The province ordered more to help overcome severe shortages during the height of the flu season. It had to clear regulatory, safety, and quarantine rules, however, before it could be made available in Alberta. The cost to taxpayers is $80 million, or about $14 per bottle.
The wait is over. Help is now here. Children's acetaminophen is now available for distribution to local pharmacies, and we hope this brings much needed peace of mind to parents everywhere, and parents can feel confident that we have secured a stable supply of this medication for years to come, ensuring that Alberta isn't as susceptible to global supply chain disruptions in the future. I want parents to know that your government has heard you, and I truly hope that this supply will provide a little bit more comfort and relief to you and your families.
Health Minister Jason Copping says the province plans to subsidize the cost of the medicine to keep it competitive with other brands. Meanwhile, the shortage of pain and fever medication for kids has been a stressful time for families. This has not only been put a strain on the hospitals, but also pharmaceutical staff who carry the medication. The owner of the medicine shop near the Chinook Regional Hospital in Lethbridge says during the fall season, they really struggled to keep the meds on the shelves and had to resort to an alternative form of kids' Tylenol.
Fall had been terrible. During fall and during Christmas time, we parents were so much worried, anxious, and what was happening. Right now, it's pretty much resolved, I would say, because we still have 8 or 9 bottles of Tylenol suspension sitting on shelf. We have Advil suspension kits, but it was terrible at that time, and what we had to do is we had to do compounding of Tylenol and Advil liquid, and it is a short expiry, it expires in a month, so you had to consume it, while the commercially made available, it has a longer expiry.
Staff at the medicine shop say they are not sure how many bottles of pain and fever medication they'll be receiving, but any amount will be a welcome sight for parents, that's for sure. The Edmonton Valley Zoo has released medical information which says that an Asian elephant named Lucy cannot be moved. This despite demands from animal rights groups for years that she be transferred to a sanctuary. The zoo said it has been working closely with the animal advocacy group Free the Wild since 2022.
The key observation or the key findings was a conclusion that had been drawn by previous experts that had been here before, and that is that she does have a severe breathing issue, a respiratory challenge. And it's something that has caused previous experts that have examined her to warn against moving her from our zoo. The stress associated with that travel could be life-threatening and would be life-threatening for her. They had hoped to uncover or diagnose exactly what the cause of this respiratory issue is, because it has been a mystery. We know that after just a short bit of exercise, she has to gasp for breath, and we'd love to know what's the cause of it.
With an Alberta election right around the corner, more fringe parties are emerging to give people other options. After the break, we speak with the leader of the Alberta First Party. That's next. Keep it right here.
Singular focus, Hal. It's separation. We're getting a raw deal from Ottawa. We've tried every other avenue available to us within Confederation to get a better deal, and nothing's worked out.
Welcome back. The Alberta election is coming up May 29th, and there are some who feel that Alberta should separate from Canada. You can include Ed Kallio in that group. Kallio is the leader of the Alberta First Party, which is seeking official party status. He says Alberta needs to go its own way, considering how Ottawa keeps attacking our energy and agriculture sectors. He also tells Hal Roberts how Alberta would be able to stand on its own as a separate nation. Take a look.
So, Ed, how would you describe the Alberta First Party? What is it really all about?
Singular focus, Hal. It's separation. We're getting a raw deal from Ottawa. We've tried every other avenue available to us within Confederation to get a better deal, and nothing's worked out. So we really need to get out of this mess called Confederation, and that's our focus at Alberta First.
So before we talk about what an independent state of Alberta would look like here, will you have candidates running in all of the Alberta ridings?
We need to get official party status, and so we would like to run at least half the candidates. We need 44 in order to achieve official party status. And so that's our goal. We have a number of candidates already, but we're short of that number. We're very much grassroots and just getting going here, Al.
So if you were to achieve that official party status, how could you expect to compete against the big dogs like the UCP and the NDP?
Well, we just see that the UCP and the NDP are they're big tent, that they're likely to water down, any leverage that Alberta has with the feds. We just don't think that even with the Sovereignty Act, for instance, that's enough of a stick to get a better deal for Alberta. And when you look at the numbers, they are absolutely stark. The amount of outflow from taxation, various transfers to the feds, and the amount that we get back as Albertans, it just doesn't add up. So that's why we need a singular focus. We need a big stick to go to Alberta, and that's to go to Ottawa with, and that's a referendum on separation. And that's the only way we're going to get a better deal and or separate. But separation is the goal.
Now, in the 2019 provincial election, it resulted in one of the highest voter turnouts since 1982 at about 68%, rising from 57% in 2015. Do you think we'll see that kind of engagement once again from Albertans?
Yes, I would expect to see a high level of engagement, Hal, again. I think that Premier Kenney had made some promises going into the last election, which he didn't come through with. Then there was a change of leadership at the UCP with Danielle Smith taking over in her Sovereignty Act. I think that Albertans are focused. We're seeing increasingly an urban/rural divide. You're seeing clusters of NDP seats in the big cities, and then the rural areas are very much more conservative/UCP. And so I expect that voters are going to be absolutely focused on this election.
Now, many in our province would argue that Alberta is the economic engine that really drives Canada. So do you think that the British Crown and the rest of Canada will let us go without a fight? And many would say that Alberta is a lot stronger being in Confederation.
Separation can happen. The federal government sent a reference case to the Supreme Court with respect to what conditions would be necessary for a province to separate. The Supreme Court rendered that decision. Then we had the federal government enact the Clarity Act. So the template is there.
Well, most of us take for granted being able to put on a seatbelt or even hold an item in our hand. But for people living with a certain disability or mobility issue, something like stirring a pot or even rolling a dice could be challenging. But imagine if there were tools invented to help people do these everyday things. After the break, I speak with some incredible students who are finding ways to do just that. You won't want to miss it. Stay with us. Welcome back. Imagine someone without arms or range of motion being able to kayak or hold cards or even roll a dice during a board game. What seems small and insignificant to many of us could mean a world of difference in the quality of someone's life. And it could be a reality with the invention of adaptive tools designed specifically for people with disabilities. In this next interview, I speak with some amazing University of Lethbridge students inventing some tools to help enhance the lives of other people. Check it out. Carly, what's your field of study exactly, and how does the Adaptive Tech program help you as you advance through your years at the university?
Sure, great question. So I am in therapeutic recreation, and we work with a variety of different individuals that have different disabilities, conditions, illnesses. So this Adaptive Tech program really helped me in figuring out ways that I can make life a little bit easier for these individuals. So building switches for individuals who have lower dexterity in their fingers. And so yeah, it really, really helped me. And it actually really helped me also write papers. So giving me a little bit more of a knowledge base.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what else could you ask for as a student, right? Okay, and then Lindsay, how about for yourself? Are you working on any kind of a specific project right now?
I am actually. They have a newer type of student project program with our schooling, and it's doing an adaptive tech assignment where we have to decide and create something to help a person with a disability. So currently right now I am working on trying to adapt a handle for a kayak paddle for an individual with cerebral palsy who maybe doesn't have the grip strength to hold on to the kayak paddle. So it's just a way to have their hand either rest into this little handle so they can move their arms with it, or have it so that it just helps secure their hand to the kayak paddle a bit more.
And it's something we don't think about, that there are people that can't take part in these activities, and a program like this and students like you are really going to help them out, absolutely. And I understand also that there are partnerships with Alberta Health Services for this. Can you tell us about some of these partnerships?
So we work with Alberta Health Services to implement our tools to make low-tech assistive devices to increase family quality of life.
Yeah, maybe talk about that a little bit so that our viewers understand it.
Yeah, all right. So I drive a Subaru, And so I can open my seatbelt no problem. And sometimes it's just, I'm wearing a jacket and I might need a little bit extra length to depress my seatbelt. So this thing is just a little handle like this, where you handle it with one hand and it compresses your seatbelt. So you get out a little bit easier.
You guys are basically inventors. So if I were to come down to your lab, what kind of, I mean, you mentioned sewing machines and 3D printers, but what kind of tools would I be seeing you working on?
Right now, you would see us be working mainly on soldering irons. The students, anyway, me and Lindsay, we are preparing for our next Makers Making Change event. So we're soldering things and 3D printing, and I think that's mainly what we're doing right now. So
that's incredible. It sounds like Santa's workshop, only with, I guess, adaptive toys. It's pretty cool. Okay, so maybe tell us about the Makers Making Change and Makers Making Change build events.
Sure, yeah. So we have an upcoming Makers Making Change build event on the 23rd, and we are going to be building dice rollers with everybody. So I have one here. So these are the dice rollers. This is a 3D printed base, and then the dice are in here, and this is the button. And when you press that, the dice jumble around. And so that's what we're working on building for our next event. And all of our designs come from the Makers Making Change website. So we get students, it's open to the public from 6 till 8, and we get them this base comes in multiple different parts. So they build everything from stripping the wires to soldering to gluing things together, all to make this dice roller.
Coming up after the break, a Lego masterpiece that resembles a well-known building in Lethbridge. Plus, we take a look at some of the headlines this week from across southern Alberta. Don't go away.
And it did end up being 5 feet by 3 feet. It took about 2,500 pieces, and we have about 75 minifigures in there. And Wilson has about 700 students.
Welcome back. The Permanent Supportive Housing Program at the YWCA Lethbridge and District will soon be no more, as the organization has decided to end its contract. The CEO of the YWCA, Jill Young, says it's a complex issue and they know it will have an effect on the community. She says, however, that long-term financially it had to end. Young explains how this will affect their clients and says that there are other alternatives in place.
This affects 24 different individuals. And again, I want to emphasize that this decision did not come lightly. We are currently working with other organizations, other providers that can provide housing to these individuals. It is on a case-by-case and very individual needs for what different participants need and where they may be successful in the long term. So there are lots of different options, and we're working with as many providers as we can to ensure that we have some next steps available for the individuals that are affected.
No other programs within the YWCA will be affected by the change. The contract will be coming to an end on March the 31st. Over 400 members from the Blood Tribe are now using a new mobile communications app through the Kainai Nation. The app was launched on February 17th and is meant to help out residents who are looking for more information, including new job opportunities. An official with the Blood Tribe says developing the app began shortly after the pandemic.
We've been thinking about the app for a little while now. The pandemic, we really saw how people, how remote people were and to access that information. So having an app would benefit our members who live in rural areas, who live off reserve, and are able, this would give them the opportunity to access that information.
Pam Blood says more residents are signing up daily, and it's available to download on either an iPhone or an Android device. Well, CD Sunday is a chance to learn about gardening, local food, and the environment. The annual event put on by At Lethbridge will feature 18 local businesses as exhibitors. Kathleen Shepard, the executive director of the organization, says more people are hoping to learn about growing their own food as the cost of living continues to rise.
I think there's been a lot of interest in gardening, coming out of that pandemic. A lot of people kind of got started, and now, as you say, with the inflation being high, people are sort of looking at different options. And CD Sunday, really, if you haven't gardened before, or maybe you have gardened but you've struggled, this is a great way to come down and talk to some people who have some expertise. So we're going to have the Lethbridge Horticulture Society will be there. We have local arborists. We have an exhibitor who's an expert in soil. So it's a really great way to get started.
CD Sunday will take place at CASA on April 2nd from 1 till 4 p.m. If you've ever played with Lego, you might appreciate this next story. A mother-son duo has created a Lego reconstruction of a middle school in Lethbridge where the mom works. The Lego masterpiece took them around 3 months to complete. BCN's Micah Quinn chatted with the mother about how you're never too old to build Lego.
I've read that interest in Lego has gone up 20% in the past year, and that COVID was really one of the reasons for that, is that people were at home looking for creative outlets, and this is kind of a fun hobby and a rewarding experience to be able to create and to build something that's unique.
Emily LeBaron and her son Isaac have a love for Lego that runs deep. The mother and son duo work together to enter their Lego Wilson Middle School project into this year's Lethbridge School Division Lego Challenge. LeBaron says she thought of little details like Peter Pan on the stage from her own experience as a staff member at Wilson Middle School.
The school did Peter Pan this year, so when we were building the gym and we made the stage, we're like, well, of course we have to have Peter Pan on the stage, because that's the reality of what the kids saw this year.
The Lego Group Toy Company was founded in 1932, and the word Lego is an abbreviation of the two Danish words leg, got, which means play well. LeBaron outlined the size and scale of the Lego piece for us.
And it did end up being 5 feet by 3 feet. It took about 2,500 pieces, and we have about 75 minifigures in there. And Wilson has about 700 students. So I figure this is maybe a 1/10 of what a day in the life of school looks like.
The winners of this year's Lego Challenge are set to be announced at the end of March. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Coming up, research is being done to understand more fully the effects of changing the clock back and forth twice a year. Turns out it's not very good for us. That's next.